Back then, I had to kiss my own son. And the worst part is that everyone standing around just nodded and said, "Make it look real." A single sentence like that was enough to silence an entire room. No more laughter, no more warm nostalgia, only the creeping realization that for decades we've all unknowingly looked past something much darker hiding inside this film.
I would say that the one thing that they really got right was Marty McFly's receding hairline.
They really did. You know, this is what you were supposed to look like. They predicted you'd look like at 47 years old.
Because Back to the Future isn't just about a mother falling for her future son. A twist audiences laughed at while the actors carried the discomfort for the rest of their lives. Beneath it lies the harsh reality of 1980s Hollywood, where a young actress had every curve scrutinized, every inch of her costume adjusted as if her body were just another prop for the crew. And worse still, the production once coldly erased an actor who had filmed for 6 entire weeks, without a single word of warning. His name wiped from the set photos, destroyed footage locked away as if he had never existed at all. Today, we rewind that childhood classic. But this time, we're watching the version the people who lived it have finally dared to reveal. And you will never look at Back to the Future the same way again. Hollywood's dark secret of 1985, Lea Thompson and the Day She Didn't Dare Say No. Do you still remember Lorraine in 1955? The soft curls, the sweetheart neckline, the shy smile. Many viewers watching again as adults suddenly realized, why did she look so sensual in a family movie? Only when the truth about the production came out did people understand that this perfect appearance came with pressures. Almost no one saw a harsh, demanding, and sometimes shockingly disrespectful Hollywood. In later interviews, Lea Thompson revealed what a young actress had to endure on the Back to the Future set. And her stories stunned fans behind the warm glow of the film was a darkness she carried alone. Lea said that on the very first days, a producer looked her up and down and delivered a line as cold as steel. "You need to lose weight. Fast. You don't look right." Not professional advice, not acting direction, just her body, not matching their taste. And it didn't stop there. To turn Lorraine into the dream girl of the 50s, the production forced Lea into thickly padded bras, tight dresses, deeper necklines than the script ever required, more revealing outfits designed to make Lorraine look sexier. Thompson later said bluntly, "I was told to dress far more provocatively than the character needed, and I wasn't allowed to say no." Men on the crew frequently joked at her expense, targeting her body. Wolf whistles when she walks by, comments whispered just loud enough for her to hear, stares that didn't bother hiding, scanning her like she wasn't an actress but a prop. Lea confessed in an interview, "I was just a young girl. I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know I had the right to refuse." She came to the set hoping to create a memorable performance. But every day, alongside acting, she had to survive scrutiny and body pressure, the kind of thing Hollywood saw as normal back then. The bitterest part. All of this was hidden for decades. Do you think 1980s Hollywood was too cruel to actresses? I was so exhausted I literally passed out. Michael J. Fox's confession that shocked fans. Anyone who waited for Family Ties every Tuesday night surely remembers the thrill of seeing Alex P. Keaton walk in with his tiny briefcase and blazer. Few knew that after making you laugh in your living room, that same young man would sprint straight to another studio to become Marty McFly until 3 a.m. To many viewers, Fox was their childhood, but for Fox himself, his own youth was a long string of sleepless nights. What almost no one knew was that Michael J. Fox, the man the world now calls the only possible Marty McFly, wasn't the first choice. The studio actually reviewed him, then set him aside for a reason so bizarre even Fox couldn't believe it. His hands are too small, not leading man material. That was the comment whispered around Universal's meeting room. a ridiculous criterion, but enough to almost cost Fox the defining role of his life. Only when Robert Zemeckis saw his audition tape did he immediately say, "This is Marty McFly. We don't need big hands. We need a big heart." But the price Fox had to pay to turn Marty into a legend was brutal. One night at 2:45 a.m., Michael J. Fox stood alone in an empty parking lot, still holding his skateboard, eyes squinting as the set lights shut off. He couldn't remember what scenes he had filmed. He couldn't remember who yelled cut. He couldn't remember why he was standing there. The only thing he could feel was his body trembling from exhaustion. Then he collapsed into the back seat of his car and fell unconscious within seconds. Zemeckis once recalled how Fox would arrive straight from his sitcom, set out of breath, red-eyed from sleep deprivation. But 10 minutes later, when the lights came on, Fox would jump onto the skateboard and perform a complicated action sequence like he was the most energetic man alive. Zemeckis still shivers remembering it. "I'd never seen anything like that." He walked in like a corpse, and 10 minutes later, he exploded like lightning. There were nights when Fox fell asleep on the floor while makeup artists powdered his face. Days when he passed out in his car and had to be shaken awake by assistants. His exhaustion became so severe that he couldn't remember the scenes he had already acted in. When he watched the final cut, he laughed, then froze. Wait, when did I film this? But on screen, no one saw a tired Marty McFly. They saw a sharp, funny, radiant teenager, the embodiment of youthful energy. No one knew that behind that smile was a 23-year-old boy surviving solely on sheer willpower. And that's why fans say Back to the Future didn't just succeed because of Michael J. Fox, it survived because he sacrificed his body to keep it alive. The buried truth. There was a Marty McFly who was fired after 6 weeks of filming. Longtime fans of Back to the Future believe there's only one Marty McFly, but hidden in reels that the world never saw, there was another Marty. Marty Hollywood was buried so deeply that people who worked with him were afraid to say his name. Years later, Thomas F. Wilson, Biff Tannen, finally broke the silence and revealed what no one on set dared say. "At the time, I've never seen anyone disappear from a movie that fast. One day, he was standing right next to me. The next day, every trace of him was gone, like he never existed." That sentence opened the door to one of the darkest secrets of Back to the Future. The story of the original Marty McFly who filmed almost half the movie, only to be erased, sealed away, and written out of history so the world would believe he was never part of it. Most viewers don't know that before Michael J. Fox stepped in, Marty McFly wasn't a wisecracking, energetic teen. The first Marty was Eric Stoltz, a dramatic, emotionally intense actor with little comedic spark. And he didn't just shoot a few scenes, he filmed 6 full weeks. He starred in nearly all major sequences, the school, the dance scenes with Doc Brown. Half the movie, performed by someone no one was allowed to mention. Then one morning during a short meeting, Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale looked at each other and said the sentence that sealed his fate. "He's not bringing the comedy. We have to replace him." The decision was sent to Universal. Approval came in under an hour. The cruelest part. No one told Stoltz directly. He found out he was fired from his agent. No conversation, no goodbye, no explanation. The next day, supporting actors were called back. They looked around the suddenly empty set and asked, "Where's Eric?" No one dared answer. Leah Thompson recalled, "It felt like a punch to the heart. Everything happened so coldly." Universal immediately issued orders. No one mentions this. No interviews, no comments, no more saying his name. Hollywood began its erasure. Most behind-the-scenes photos of Stoltz were collected and destroyed. His filmed scenes were sealed in Universal's vault for nearly 30 years. All PR material was forbidden from referencing him. A silent purge. Clean, efficient, total. It wasn't until 2010 that bits of Stoltz's footage leaked. For the first time, the world saw the original Marty McFly, a strange, almost haunting version, living proof of how hard Hollywood tried to pretend he never existed. Do you want Universal to release the full footage of the first Marty type? Want to see it in the comments if you do. The dark truth behind Marty and Lorraine, the scene that made me disgusted with myself. Anyone who watched Back to the Future on VHS in the late 80s surely remembers the moment Lorraine looked at Marty and whispered, "He's a dream." Kids burst out laughing, but adults froze for a beat, struck by a strange chill. Back then, I had to kiss a young man, whom audiences would later realise was the son of the very character I was playing. And everyone told me, just make it look real. That line spoken in an interview dropped like someone had shut off all sound in the room. That one moment peeled away the sugary coating of Back to the Future, exposing what Lea Thompson openly called a feeling of disgust. It's a story everyone knows, Marty McFly. Michael J. Fox is thrown back to 1955 and accidentally becomes the teenage crush of his own mother, Lorraine Baines Lea Thompson. But beneath the upbeat soundtrack and the laughter, the core of this plotline is undeniably a form of indirect incest standing right on the edge of a moral cliff. Michael J. Fox once joked half seriously, "On paper it's funny, but if that happened in real life, it'd be a nightmare." Lea Thompson didn't sugarcoat anything. Those scenes made me feel sick. A mother flirting with her own son, even thinking about it gives me chills. What's striking is that Back to the Future knew it was playing with fire. That's why the script built an invisible fence. Marty is always panicked, dodging, desperate to run. Every time Lorraine leans in, the camera pulls back the editing titans, and Fox's acting pushes viewers toward one shared reaction. No, this is wrong. Any moment that risked going further was cut at the last second, as if an unseen hand in the editing room kept yanking the emergency brake. Yet even after 4 decades, this remains one of the film's most divisive elements. Many adults rewatching it have bluntly called it the most disturbing scene in a comedy, arguing Hollywood crossed a line for the sake of a few laughs. Others claim it was a bold narrative choice, a brutal way to force viewers to confront the fact that their parents were once confused, impulsive, rebellious teenagers. 2, not the perfect figures we imagine. And it's exactly that tug of war between outer comedy and inner discomfort that keeps Back to the Future from being just a fun adventure movie. It becomes something that lingers, making audiences ask, was Lorraine falling for her own son a stroke of genius, or a moral stain wrapped in charm? Lea Thompson's shocking admission, "I didn't want to act with Michael." I admit it, I didn't like Michael at first, and the reason wasn't his fault. Lea Thompson's confession made the entire audience fall silent. For nearly 40 years, viewers believed Marty and Lorraine had perfect chemistry on and off camera. But the truth was far more complicated and painfully human. In Back to the Future, they were the strangest mother-son pair in film history, a 1950s teenage girl and the boy from the future, who also happened to be her own son. On screen, they were adorable, awkward, charming, hilarious. But off-screen during the early days, the mood was the complete opposite. The reason was simple. Eric Stoltz, Lea had worked closely with Stoltz for 6 full weeks. He was intense, serious, always in character, never breaking. They built rhythms, emotions, trust, and then suddenly, overnight, he was gone. Eric was fired and I had no idea it was coming. Thompson said the shock made her withdraw emotionally. So when Michael J. Fox finally walked in, she was still grieving the loss of her scene partner and struggling to adjust to Marty's new lighter, more comedic energy. But there was a bigger barrier, Hollywood hierarchy. In the 80s, actors were divided into 2 worlds, film actors and TV actors. Thompson belonged to the first. Fox was known only from the sitcom Family Ties. She admitted, "I thought he was just a TV star. That mindset made me put up walls." But the movie shattered those walls in a way no one expected through laughter. When they began filming the 1955 scenes where Lorraine flirted shyly yet boldly with Marty Thompson, finally saw what Zemeckis had always seen. Only Fox could strike the perfect tone. His natural comedy turned scenes that could have been disturbing into something funny, charming, and full of life. Over time, Thompson grew to admire Fox's persistence, humility, and almost superhuman work ethic. I was wrong. Michael was the Marty McFly the film needed. And from a relationship that began with doubt and distance, they created one of the most unforgettable acting duos in movie history. Wrong-touching, hilarious, and utterly irreplaceable. Bob Gale reveals the moment that changed the entire movie when the fridge became the DeLorean. Back then, there were those after-school screenings where you sat on plastic chairs, the wind chilling your neck, and the moment the DeLorean left, 2 trails of fire made the entire schoolyard erupt in cheers. In an anniversary talk, Bob Gale laughed and dropped a line that made the whole room gasp. If we hadn't changed our minds back then, Marty McFly would have climbed into a refrigerator to travel through time. No one could believe it, but it was true. In the very first draft of Back to the Future, the time machine didn't have wheels and engine or gull-wing doors. It was a time chamber, a fixed device like the lab machines in those B-grade sci-fi films from the 50s. There was an even stranger version, a giant refrigerator sitting in Doc Brown's lab. Marty would step inside, pull the door shut, a flash of light, and boom, he'd vanish. It sounded fun, but the tone of the film became slow and heavy, no energy, no mischievous youthfulness, no sense of out-of-control adventure that a time travel movie needs. Robert Zemeckis was the first to see the problem. He asked himself, if Marty has to run to the clock tower at midnight, is he supposed to drag a 200-kilo fridge with him? Just picture that iconic scene in the stormy night. Doc Brown struggles to haul a huge refrigerator up the shaking clock tower. No suspense, no speed, no sense of racing against death. It would just be ridiculous. Zemeckis and Gale realised that if the film was going to have a soul, the time machine had to move. It had to be cool. It had to fire up a teenager's imagination. In other words, it needed wheels. When the DeLorean DMC-12 appeared stainless steel shining low-profile gull-wing doors, they knew they'd found the movie's third main character. It wasn't just a vehicle. It wasn't just a prop. It became a symbol. It looked like it had driven straight out of the future, even before the effects team bolted on a single light or flux capacitor. The DeLorean roared to 88 miles per hour, leaving 2 burning tracks behind it. The flux capacitor glowed like a beating heart. Marty swung the gull-wing door open in style. Those moments didn't just work as special effects, they turned the car into a piece of the youth of millions of people. Today, it's almost impossible to imagine Back to the Future without the DeLorean. A stationary time machine could never have become a legend. As Bob Gale put it, it just proves that creative ideas evolve, and sometimes, cool is the most important science of all. The strangest lawsuit in Hollywood when Crispin Glover's face was stolen. Do you remember George McFly hanging upside down on stage, spinning awkwardly in that clumsy, endearing way? That image is burned into the memories of generations. And yet, in part 2, that familiar face wasn't actually Crispin Glover. It's only when we grew up that we realised we'd been tricked without knowing it. This is one of the strangest lawsuits in Hollywood history, centred on something that had never happened before an actor's own face being stolen. Crispin Glover, who played George McFly in Part 1, didn't return for Back to the Future Part 2 due to conflicts with the studio. Pay disputes, creative control, and disagreements over the film's message led him to walk away. Normally, when an actor doesn't come back, Hollywood simply recasts. But Universal chose a route no one expected. They hired another actor and didn't stop at just finding someone who looked like Crispin Glover. They put a special rubber mask on him, copying every line, every angle of Glover's face, to the point that when the movie came out, audiences thought Crispin Glover was still in it. When Glover saw it, he was genuinely shocked. He immediately sued Universal, accusing the studio of stealing his likeness, using his appearance without permission, without payment, and without his involvement. Hollywood lawyers at the time assumed the case would go nowhere. But then the unexpected happened. Crispin Glover won. The victory rocked Hollywood. It raised an issue no one had truly considered before an actor has the right to their own facial image, and a studio cannot freely recreate it, whether with masks or effects. From that point on, Hollywood had to change. A new rule was established, one of the most important precedents in the industry. It forbids using masks or makeup to replicate a performer's likeness. If they are not part of the project and requires permission and payment if their image is recreated. Today, as Hollywood steps deeper into the age of CGI and deepfakes, Crispin Glover's lawsuit is still cited as the first warning shot. It's not the studios and not the technology, the actor is the one who owns their face. The reunion that made thousands cry over, Back to the Future. 40 years after. Back to the Future premiered Fan Expo New Orleans 2025 turned into a real-life time machine. The moment you stepped into the hall, it felt like being pulled back to 1985. DeLorean models everywhere, the power of love blasting through the speakers, and hundreds of fans from older adults to young people who weren't even born when the movie came out, gathered to witness a historic moment, the cast reunion. Michael J. Fox walked out first, and the room almost exploded. He was still Marty McFly, sharp, witty, full of life, even if his legs are no longer as steady as they once were. He opened with a joke that had everyone clutching their sides. I don't know if we're celebrating 40 years, or if I just time-travelled way too far. Then he shared old stories, dangerous scenes, brutal schedules, sleepless nights, juggling sitcom shoots and a feature film. Every sentence carried the same energy that created Marty McFly, and the audience instantly understood why this character is still a symbol of youth after 4 decades. Lea Thompson appeared next radiant as if she'd never stepped away from Lorraine. She talked about how strange it felt realising a film she made as a kid had become a cultural artifact loved even by Gen Z. Looking at Michael J. Fox sitting beside her, she said, "It's like I'd just opened a door and stepped right back into 1985. You could see the emotion in her eyes. The one who brought the entire hall to its feet, though, was Christopher Lloyd. Despite his age, he walked out with the presence of Doc Brown everyone knows by heart. Doc never left me," he said slowly but firmly. "And I don't think he ever left you either." When Lloyd smiled, the crowd sank into pure nostalgia, the screams of Great Scott, the crazy moments full of heart. Thomas F. Wilson, the legendary bully Biff Tannen, brought more laughter when he said, "I've been playing the bad guy for 40 years, and people still recognise me in the supermarket." Huey Lewis shared stories about The Power of Love, a song he never imagined would become the soul of the movie and of an entire generation. The reunion wasn't just a group of people retelling old tales. It felt like a giant family gathering where everyone cast fans. Those who grew up with the film looked back together at the friendships, courage, and choices that shaped the future. 40 years later, Back to the Future hasn't faded. It's only grown deeper, reminding us that some films don't just transcend time, they make time to bow to them. Among the original cast who moved you the most when you saw them return? Write their name in the comments. Let's see who is the most beloved. For nearly 4 decades, Back to the Future has been remembered as a fun, high-energy adventure, a story full of youthful drive and the belief that every choice can change the future. But only when we look behind the scenes do we see where the real miracle lies. What made the movie a legend wasn't just the script or the DeLorean, it was the people behind it. Young actors who were scared, confused, embarrassed. Directors who were rejected dozens of times. Artists who worked themselves to the brink. And those moments when they almost lost each other, yet somehow found their rhythm again. All of them poured their hearts into a project no one believed in at first, and turned it into a film the world will never forget. Of all the secrets we've just uncovered, which one shocked you the most? Do you think Back to the Future would still be a legend if these things hadn't happened? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to keep uncovering the secrets Hollywood has buried for decades, don't forget to hit like, share and subscribe so you don't miss the next videos.